section. Proposed UDRO changes.
In the packet, and Ted, who's here to speak on that?
For the minutes, Edward Baker, Secretary of the Planning Board. We also have Bruce Pierce, who's the Vice Chairman of the Planning Board, Rob Yates, who's an alternate member, and that constitutes a quorum of the Planning Board, not that this is a Planning Board meeting. The Planning Board is recommending a whole slew of minor and major amendments to the Uniform Development Review Ordinance, commonly referred to as UDRO. And I put together a 4-page summary, which was emailed to Loretta, and I'm trying to just printing them out and pass them around. The major changes are primarily in Section 13 of the UDRO, which are the performance standards. And we are proposing 3 new performance standards and a major change to an existing one. The first one, which is on halfway down your first page of your handout, is called 13Q, and is titled Recreational Lodging Facilities. And the purpose of this, no, don't touch. I'm sorry, I don't have any extra copies.
Okay, sorry.
The recreational lodging facility is a kind of a new concept and is in keeping with today's more diverse recreational lodging or recreational activities that we see going around us. There is centered, as I said, it's centered around an outdoor experience. It includes lodging in cabins, yurts, recreational vehicles, tents, etc. And we'll be also putting in a new definition as to recreational lodging facilities. A campground is a recreational lodging facility, but a recreational lodging facility may not be a campground. So there's a campground is a subset of the recreational lodging facility. The performance standard sets a minimum operating standard, such as having a manager 24 hours a day, observing quiet hours, and other operational restrictions or rules that have to be set. The performance standard also sets up some land use standards, such as a minimum lot size, setback, visual buffers, etc. Along with the performance standard, there are several new definitions that will be added to Section 24, which is the section that covers definitions for recreational lodging facilities. Last but not least, the table of land use, which is Section 23H of the UDRO, will have a new line item amended to it, allowing a recreational lodging facility, with the exception of campgrounds, to be done in all 3 districts except for the protected district. So that would be the resort development district, the general development district, and the rural development district. The current restriction on campgrounds to the rural district remains. The campground is defined as, we changed the definition on the campground. And Gary, you were on this and on the committee a year ago that went through this, and the committee did not want to move or wanted to keep the restriction of campgrounds in the rural district and nowhere else. However, so a campground will now be defined as a recreational lodging facility which includes any area or tract of land to accommodate a user's recreational vehicle temporary shelter and for which a fee is charged. The shelter must be provided by the user, arrives with the user at the commencement of their stay, and departs with the user at the termination of their stay. So if you have a recreational lodging facility and you have a series of yurts that belong to the facility and they are permanently there, that is not a campground. But if you have a plot of land and you allow somebody to come and you rent it out to somebody who comes and brings their shelter, be it an RV, be it a tent, or just a sleeping bag, that would be a campground. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to allow a outdoor experience lodging facility, so a cabin or a yurt or some other permanent structure which belongs to the establishment as opposed to the camper. And that would then be allowed in the resort development district, the general development district, and the rural district. However, a campground, the traditional campground, would still remain only allowed in the rural district. Some other restrictions are recreational lodging facility must be of 10 acres or more. It must go through the state licensing for a campground, etc. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. The next major change is section AC, which deals with life safety and fire suppression. This is an existing performance standard in the UDRO, but we are making some major changes to it. The biggest change is that we are removing or suggesting that we move the provision for a fire pond. And therefore, a subdivision would either have to sprinkle individual dwelling units or provide a water storage facility such as a cistern, but not a fire pond. And the reason that we are recommending that we do away with fire ponds in the future is that they are very difficult. They are not maintained and very difficult to enforce maintenance of the fire pond, such as keeping it brushed, keeping it dredged, keeping the hydrant in good working order. And we currently have several fire ponds in the town which are in a state of disarray, to even to the point where they probably don't provide much useful firefighting water in the town.
Systems that don't work too.
That is true. One of the changes would be that cisterns would now have to be constructed to NFPA 22, I believe it was, standard. They would have to be certified by a professional engineer to meeting that standard. And we're putting in the requirements that the owner maintains them. We're also requiring that cisterns have a above ground visual water level indicator so that they can quickly be checked. We're also requiring the owners of the cisterns to conduct monthly inspection of the cisterns and keep a record of those inspections and provide them to the town upon demand.
The above ground part doesn't work in the wintertime, no, when it freezes.
Well, we'll have to work around that, but at least if in the summertime it'll be better than.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now, you have to go open it up and look down and drop a tape or something like that.
Don't all subdivisions now have to be sprinkled?
They have, right, the current UDRO allows 3 options. Sprinkling, which has to be carried over into the deed restrictions of the lot that it's sold. It allows for a firefighting system, or a cistern of 40,000 gallons that has to be located within 1,500 feet, linear road feet,
Oh.
and no more than 500 feet vertical. Or a fire pond that provides 60,000 gallons of water year-round. And the problem with the fire ponds is that they fill up, they silt in,
Yeah.
and then they have to be dredged. The owners drag their feet on dredging, and that's not a liability that I think the town wants to take on either.
Sprinklers, insurance rates are higher with sprinklers than they are without.
Well, that would be up to-
Because of the water damages and everything that happens with sprinklers.
But that's a decision for the subdivider,
That's
right? You know, do they want to build a 60,000 gallon cistern that's within the distance and whatnot? Or do they want to pass the cost on to whoever buys the lot and builds the house and requires sprinkler?
Yeah.
Cost is not something we care about.
No, I understand that, but I was
Okay.
just pointing this out because it is a fact.
Well,
Yeah.
but we cannot use that in our UDRO.
No, I know that.
Are we gonna run into the same problem with the fire ponds when we have them do their own inspections on the cisterns?
I'm sorry?
Like the fire pond issues that we're having, like nobody maintains them, and you're requiring them to do self-inspections, are we gonna have the same problem? They're not gonna
Existing fire ponds would become non-conforming,
Right, I'm
non-conforming
just saying,
structure.
having them do their own inspections and then,
On the cisterns?
yeah.
It could possibly be, I think cisterns though, in a whole, with the exception of one or two that we have that leak, are probably more,
Well,
they require a lot less
I'm
maintenance.
sure they're better, but, you know, we're putting stuff in here that we can't
Well, it's,
check, you can't.
the enforcement of the UDRO, whether it's the existing UDRO or the proposed amendments, is a function of the code enforcement officer and you three, the select board, as the overseers of the town. And so any enforcement action that the Code Enforcement Act passes on to you for your action. So it's up to the town whether or not they really want to take a landowner to, push the issue of maintenance and eventually take it to court, et cetera, et cetera.
What would happen if we had once a year, an engineer had to inspect the system?
That's certainly, I'm not sure, I guess you could do that.
Well, I'm just thinking if there's a problem.
But again, you come to the enforcement action as to, okay,
Instead of inspecting themselves at least once a year.
well, the fire department is supposed to be inspecting the cisterns once a year,
True.
as it is. So I would think that would probably substitute for having a professional engineer coming in and opening it up and say, yeah, you got water in there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's to the idea that under new construction of fire ponds, to have this stipulation put into the UDRO to say that the association of the owners will inspect their water levels within their cisterns, and they will log this information, and as it says, at the request of the town to see that information, to make sure that they've been keeping up on it, instead of the fire department getting there and saying that the cistern's been leaking, and, we know nothing about it, and, when they go to use it. So this is, I think, checks and balances to
Well, that's kind of what I was looking for, was a third party inspection. I mean, if they know anything
Maybe
about
the third
that
party is the
system,
fire
I can say, yeah, there's water in it, it's okay. If tomorrow there's no water in it, it isn't okay.
Would the annual inspection done by the fire department satisfy your needs?
I'm just bringing this up, I'm not saying one way or the other, but I just thought maybe it needs to be, it would be a better, easier to enforce it if we had an engineer or somebody that they're paying for it anyway, says there's a problem here, now we can say, well, so-and-so engineering firm says there's a problem, we say there's a problem.
The planning board certainly can rewrite and put that stipulation in there, that's, you know, that's consensus of the board.
I don't know, just bringing this
But I
up.
just feel like if we're like, okay, keep your own records, it's gonna be like the gas station bathroom clipboard. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm not saying it's not a bad idea, I get the point of it, but.
Do they have to require the monthly inspection be submitted to the town becomes an administrative burden for the code enforcement officer on top of all the other.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, that's, people are really good about it at the beginning. And then,
In part of the way, it's CYA. In other ways, it's if there's a problem and they come back and the town says, "Where's your record of inspections?" and they don't have one, well then they face the consequences. Be it a burnt down house and an unhappy owner, or enforcement action from the code enforcement officer and from the town.
And we've got action that she can take.
Yeah.
As long as it's written in the UDRO.
Well, that's what I want to make sure.
And in addition, fire ponds, even though we were removing the wording of allowing fire ponds, we do add a new section saying that fire ponds, one, are non-conforming, and existing fire ponds still have to be maintained, be brushed, be dredged upon recommendation or order from the code enforcement officer. So existing fire ponds don't walk away free.
Right.
They're still required to do that. It's just a very difficult task to make it happen.
Yeah, we've had trouble with one I know for.
Okay, any other questions on fire ponds? The next major addition to Section 13 Performance Standards is titled Wireless Telecommunication Facilities. This is a new performance standard which covers commercial wireless telecommunication facilities, also known as cell towers. It establishes a review and approval authority and defines what review approvals may be completed by the code enforcement officer and what must be reviewed and approved by the planning board. It also sets a minimum standard of the review for both the code enforcement officer and the planning board. It emphasizes co-location of new services on existing structures over building a new structure. So if an applicant was to come to the planning board and say, we want to build a new telecommunication tower and put it here, they would have to prove that existing telecommunication towers, which we have two, I believe, in the town, do not have space to co-locate on there and give the same coverage area that the applicant wants. So we're trying to minimize new towers if the existing towers can provide that. We also are stipulating that any new tower that is built must be able to accommodate 3 different providers, so that company A can come in and build their tower, that they would be required to allow co-location of company B and company C for a fair market rental price of putting their antennas on that tower. It also stipulates and requires provisions for decommissioning of a tower should it be abandoned. It also places a lot of emphasis on the visual impact on the town of Newry and trying to preserve scenic views, etc. Which, by the way, references to our comprehensive plan, which is another reason to get in our comprehensive plan into the 2020s and out of the 20-aughts.
20 olds.
The telecommunication facilities, besides the performance standard in section 13, there is a separate list of additional items that have to be submitted with the application to the planning board, such as a decommissioning plan, etc. And there's also several definitions that go into section 24, definitions that support or help explain some of the language in the performance standard. Questions? All right. The last new major change to section 13 performance standards is solar energy systems, also known as solar farms. And again, the planning board is trying to anticipate and be ready for should a facility come in and want to erect some type of a solar energy system in the town. Solar energy systems are divided into two broad categories. You have your rooftop and you have your ground-based systems. And the ground-based systems are further divided into large, medium, and small. Review and approval authority is divided between the code enforcement officer and the planning board, depending on the solar energy system size, their location, and whether the solar energy system is a principal or secondary use of the property. What do we mean by that? If the only purpose for that property is to have a solar energy farm that feeds into the grid, that's a principal use. If you have a dairy farm and you want to supplement or your energy needs by putting in a solar energy system that supports the operation of the dairy farm, that would be a secondary use. If you are a resident and you want to put solar panels on your roof of your house to help pay for the electrical use of your house, that is a secondary use. So, and the ordinance here primarily is focused on primary use. In other words, a commercial venture that wants to come in and put in a solar farm or solar collection facility. It doesn't have to be solar panels, it could be something else. And try to regulate that. Right now, the proposed performance standard limits solar energy systems to the resort development district and the general development district. It does not allow principal use solar energy farms in the rural district. And that is to preserve the rural character of Newry, which is expounded upon in our existing comprehensive plan. Pragmatically, given land values in the resort district, it's probably not going to be an issue. Nobody's going to dedicate a large plot of land to solar panels there. So that would then limit it to the general development district. And again, pragmatically, right now, the only place that we have three-phase power available is on the Sunday River side of the town. So again, pragmatically, having a solar energy facility on the river side is probably not likely unless somebody wants to put in a couple of miles of three-phase power from Route 2. But that's,
You did it like right here where
or you could have it right here. That's correct.
Don't throw any ideas. You can stand up with those.
As with the wireless telecommunications facility, in addition to the performance standard, there is a separate set of criteria that the applicant must respond to when submitting the application. And there's also several definitions that go into section 24 that support the language in the ordinance. Questions? All right, so those are the four big changes to the performance standards. The only other major item is amending section 21, performance guarantees. A little background, performance guarantee is a method that a subdivider provides the town assurance that they will carry out their subdivision plan as approved by the planning board. The current UDRO says that a performance guarantee covering 100% of infrastructure that will be taken over by the town is required, and all infrastructure that remains private on a performance guarantee that only covers 10% of the proposed plan is required. The planning board is recommending that we do away with that 10% and require a subdivider for either a major or minor subdivision to take out a performance guarantee for the entire project. The reason for that is if we look around town, we have several subdivisions that start, stop, and are never completed. And so it's the planning board's intent to be able to put a stop to that. And if we're going to have a new subdivision, we want it to be finished as plan states. That would either be paved roads or completed roads. If the subdivision is going to be a condominium, then that would be the construction of the dwelling units that are part of the plan, etc.
How many units, what percentage of units? Because you get lots that aren't sold, but the one next door is. How many of these lots in a subdivision would have to be sold to be a complete?
Currently, in the UDRO, and we're not proposing a change to that, a subdivider has a choice. They can take out a performance guarantee, bond, establish an escrow account, or a dedicated line of credit. Or if they don't want to do any of those, they can come to the town, to the planning board and to the town and say, we will limit the conveyance. Right now, the way it's written, we will not permit any building permits to be issued in the subdivision until it's complete.
So by complete, we don't mean that the lots all have to be sold. We're talking.
That's what I was trying to get at, percentage.
Well, let me bear with me, okay? The issue with building permits is building permits are issued in a subdivision to the owner of the plot of land. Building permits are not issued to the subdivider. So to place a restriction or have a subdivider say, no, we want to allow any building permits to be issued, they don't have, they've already sold a lot, they've taken the money, and now the landowner, the new owner of the lot, has this limitation that they can't build while the subdivider is over there with the money that they've already taken from the sale, and taking,
Okay, what about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? How does that going to come in there?
Okay, the UDRO also addresses phasing, and a performance guarantee. If a subdivision is going to be phased, each phase needs to have a performance guarantee covering that. Plus, the way the wording is, first, the previous phase should be substantially complete prior to progressing to the next phase. Just for the record, the history, the performance record of previous planning boards in applying performance guarantees is dismal. And the current planning board is applying the ordinance as written. We want to make it a little bit tougher, a little bit stricter, so that you get better protection, because 10% of a is really not much.
There's a question
Any other questions on performance guarantee? There are a slew of minor edits. I won't bore you with that. Some of them are just typographical or poor grammar, and some the section was rewritten without changing it, but just to improve the readability of that. All of that is detailed in this outline here, and if you have any questions now or in the next couple of days, I'll be happy to address them.
Loretta, do we have to vote to get this on the warrant?
As a lawyer, that matters.
No, he hasn't yet. But we were gonna decide tonight to have, when we want the public hearing, and then I'll push it.
So again, to recap, the planning board is recommending basically 5 major changes to the UDRO, 3 new performance standards, 1 covering recreational lodging facilities, 1 covering wireless telecommunication facilities, and 1 covering solar energy systems. Any major change to an existing performance standard or fire suppression and life safety. We are also recommending some changes to section 21 performance guarantee, placing a higher standard of performance guarantee that must be met by a subdivider. There was one other change, right, in performance guarantees. As the UDRO is written right now, a performance guarantee is required of any application, be it a subdivision or a site plan. For instance, a performance guarantee was required from Sunday River to put in their new Barker 6 lift, which was a site plan, not a subdivision. And there was a lot of discussion and negotiating between the Sunday River and the planning board as to what was required infrastructure, what is not. We are recommending that we modify the waiver restriction so that a performance guarantee cannot be waived for a subdivision, either major or minor, but allow discretion on a site plan that the planning board may field or may consider a waiver request and from the applicant, and come up with a compromise between that. So there's some site plans where it just doesn't make sense to have performance guarantee because there is no required improvements. A good example of that would be a minor, you're coming in and you want to establish a bed and breakfast that is not owner occupied. When you're putting in a application, site plan application for that, there is no performance guarantee there. You basically, we're reviewing the site for business operation. So their performance guarantee there would not really make any sense. And I appreciate the board, and I strongly urge you to approve the amendments, both major and minor, as recommended by the planning board.
And send to the attorney to review. Brooks has a question.
Will any of this be available to the public in writing, the changes?
Yes, we have to have a public hearing.
it'll be available in writing before the public hearing
Yes,
and online.
well, we hope.
Well, I mean, the planning board's got the technology, he's got it right there.
That's his copy, but after, we gotta get it.
Well,
approved.
he's got the laptop, he
That's his-
can,
Yes, a personal laptop, yeah. But hopefully it'll be done electronically. I can't guarantee that, the way technology is today, but we will have
well,
copies, but we gotta get back from the attorney first.
well, this is, you know, this affects landowners, not only subdivisions.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll do the best that we can. I mean, I guarantee nothing these days, so, but we'll do our best.
that's quite a statement in itself.
That's right.
Well, it's our website, it's,
Yeah.
we'll have it available by paper, and we can email it to people if they call and ask directly for it.
Right.
Need to know basis.
That's required by law. Yep.
There's not an easy.
We have to
way.
advertise it in the newspaper.
More like a want to,
Yeah.
basically.
We have to do a lot of things, so. Any changes will be advertised and people can call anytime.
But we did send it to the attorney, we were just waiting to hear back.
Yes. And then if you guys approve,
I believe the attorney will also decide how to best present it on the warrant.
yes. Give up. And then,
Should the select board
Yeah.
approve to go forward.
I'm assuming you guys are good with this?
Don't we have to wait for the attorney, or do we have to approve it first?
Well, you can approve this part to, so we can set a special town meeting date.
Special town meeting or
Public
public
hearing,
hearing?
not special town meeting, don't, you know, before, last week when I was trying to say special town meeting, I'd say public hearing, so you know.
In regards to the public hearing, there are other ordinances which are not part of the planning board, which also could be killed or covered at the same,
Yes.
at the same public hearing.
Yes.
Well,
These will all be taken care of at our town.
We have to have
Right, after we have a
a public
public hearing.
hearing, yeah, and then you guys would agree to put it on the warrant,
and then it gets voted on at
the
the
town
town
meeting,
meeting.
yes. Yes.
Well, I guess I'll make the motion that we schedule the public hearing.
I'll second that.
The move and second that we, set the date for the public hearing. We think we're gonna need more than one, or just the one?
As a point of order, may I question whether or not the select board needs to take action approving the amendments prior to the public hearing, or is it proper to do it after the public hearing?
What did we read, Amy? We read all this last week.
Well, isn't that what we have in the public hearing?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think legally we have to do it after the public hearing, because if we did it before, then there wouldn't be no reason to have a public hearing.
There was a recent ordinance proposal for the sustainability, that the public hearing was scheduled after the warrant had been approved, but prior to town meeting.
Oh, that was that, lady up on, excuse me, there was a local seller that wanted to have that sustainability, food sovereignty.
Food sovereignty, thank you.
That, and that was, it was on the warrant prior to the public hearing.
So the ordinance had already been written and had already been placed on the warrant prior to the public hearing.
So an error doesn't set a precedent if it's going on the downhill slope as far as public hearings.
No, that's what we're trying to determine. I think they need to accept the changes and then we have the public hearing.
The purpose of the public hearing is to inform the town of the changes and the details in the proposed ordinance change, not necessarily allow for edit and review and amendments to the proposed ordinance.
Doesn't restrict it either.
No?
Motions from the floor. I think it's a slippery slope to change ordinances without a public input, even though we made an error.
So if we propose to accept the changes and then we do the public hearing, we can go back and change it again, or no?
If,
I guess it's my.
You would have to have another
A
public hearing.
if we have the public hearing and any changes are made, we'll have to make them and then have another public hearing. And you have to advertise 10 days before, so we would have to do this like 30 days before time, in case we had a change.
And that could happen again and again.
Right. Then it would make them work, town meeting. So town meeting's set, so.
So it then goes back to my, is the public hearing an opportunity for the town to edit and amend the proposed changes, or is the public hearing a means of the town conveying to the town citizens the proposed changes so that they can make an educated vote at town meeting?
Citizens can recommend changes,
Right.
Recommended is the key word.
and they can make a proposal vote on it too.
They can vote yea or nay. They can't make on the floor changes to a zoning ordinance, not at a town meeting. No. But at a public hearing, they can recommend changes. They can recommend, yes.
Yeah, but they can either vote it down or vote it in at town.
Right, at town meeting.
At town meeting,
Yes.
that's the ultimate, yes. That's the final say.
So, I mean, that's the more knowledge that we can present people.
I'm all for that, having a town meeting where citizens can come in and get their 2 cents on the system. It just is, at some point, it has to be said enough is enough. The ordinance is written, and it goes to the warrant, and then the town votes yea or nay on it.
I didn't bring my manual, so what do you have? Hopefully.
I guess I would like to see what the town lawyers has to say about it before I make up my mind whether to accept this or not.
Good point.
I don't really see anything funky here that's really gonna have problems with, but
I can't argue against that. Nor do I want to.
but I guess we do have a motion, so.
Totally retracted.
Sure, the motion was to schedule.
Yeah, the motion was to schedule the public hearing.
It wasn't to accept the changes, it was to schedule.
As
I'll second that motion.
You did, right?
Yeah.
So, and move the second that we set a date for public hearing. All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Favor. So now we have to have considerable
Fine.
time.
Mhm.
We gotta get this reviewed by the lawyer, we gotta get it back.
Yep.
See what he says, and if there's any posh or whatever.
Yep.
And then we gotta do it so many days before the town meeting.
Right. So town meeting is May 14th, so I would suggest we have. Right, but time goes by pretty fast. And we're doing budget at the same time, so, and elections. So I would think if we had a public hearing, middle of March,
19th is a Tuesday, the 12th is a Tuesday.
You guys meet on the 12th and the 19th, so. Just want to shoot for the 19th. Why aren't they meeting the 5th?
Because
that's
that's election day.
Oh, good point. Can't do them all the same day.
I'm named the 19th, so it's good.
I'm thinking the 12th would be better. So the sooner that we get it out to the public, and, you know, the faster that they can look at it. Well, that's if we get it back from Ted Speak. Oh, we're waiting for him? Yeah. Okay, 19th it is, because we want his input for the 19th. Okay.
So we all want to be on the 19th.
I'm
Okay, March 19th it is.
Time?
Got it?
I'm thinking. Okay, aren't public hearings first on the agenda, right? Yeah, usually. Yeah, so we'll say 5, we'll set up the meeting at 5.
5:15, 5:10.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe. I'll say yes for now, just because. All depends on the heat issue. We probably should say here.
And we'll say here, and hopefully there'll be people that will show up. In the past, you know how that works.
Yes.
We will at least give the opportunity to have vote for them.
Yep. Yep.
Voice their opinion.
Want me to jump in? Sure. Gary? Next on the agenda?
Going home, huh?
Probably not.
So we have like 15 minutes now.
Yeah, but even.
Fire department updates.
Yeah. Say that again?
Fire department updates.
Yeah. So we also have an ordinance that's gonna come before you guys, just got emailed to you, I believe. Oh yeah, they looked at this a long time ago. That's right, yeah. See your minutes?
You need a copy of this?
There you go.
Your copy, sir.
All right, so you guys have heard about this. We did some edits as a fire department. I don't think any of this is a surprise. This does not need a public hearing. There's no zoning changes, so it's one of the things that's not required. But if you want us to have them all together, we can certainly do that. The biggest problem we have is some of these condos are self-governed in the resort district, and we've already responded to one condominium for 4 separate different sprinkler leaks because of their age of their system and their lack of maintenance. And we feel that because of those types of calls, along with the Airbnb folks that burn toast, but you get there at 2 a.m. and all the lights are out and the alarm is off, and it's obviously the house is not burning down, and they don't want to deal with it. We're tired of those too. We have a couple of those up in the golf course subdivision. Bethel has a nuisance ordinance. There's a couple of towns down south in southern Oxford County that have a nuisance ordinance for their fire department, so let you guys make a decision whether or not you want to put it on the warrant. And if you want to take it to the public hearing. Alan's pushing.
doing some work for the town report. 50% of our calls are classified as a nuisance call.
And the repeat offenders, I mean, it's one thing if somebody is in a home, they burn their toast, or they have a carbon monoxide detector that's beeping, and they want us to come and check it, we certainly want to make sure we get there and make sure they're safe, versus say, oh, that's just a nuisance call, we're not going. No, that's not our point. Our point is the ones that happen, 3 times a week. But they're the ones, and they don't do any maintenance. You know, they just wanna collect the rent and not do any maintenance to the building that they either are part owner in, if it's a big condominium project, or if it's an Airbnb and they're just absentee owners and live out of state and just rent and don't do any maintenance. Those are the ones we're looking to plumb up.
This is the same as the one that we had.
Exactly the same, yep. Oh, yeah, I can go do that. Just thought it was awfully dark over there. I don't want anybody following me up the stairs.
Still have record of what happened. We had some, maybe something.
Yeah, you sent to him and you guys saw it, and then that's what the team saw. You want to see your copy, that's what that too.
Or just his, because
Yep.
there was something that they.
Yep.
Some of it, I don't know whether you could actually collect, it was like, I mean, it was, whether it was fines or something. I'm not exactly sure how.
Yeah. Nope, I think they just, I got it. It's on. Yeah. Yeah. We can do that.
How much more time we have?
Yeah, this is the cleaned up version of what that the attorney sent back to us. Yeah. You got it on 8 minutes.
So we want to fill the lines out there? or-
Well, that's for you guys to look at and, we need Wendy to sign it.
Yeah, Wendy, this was attention, Wendy Hanscom as the chairperson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, okay.
She's gonna be doing all like,
Wait a minute, I said to Joelle, this is Wendy Hanscom as the chairperson.
I saw that too.
She was probably to jail last time they had.
Must have been.
actually, she wasn't, but this is a new engineer at mainland, so he probably just found some old records. This is the same letter that goes to the sheriff's office, it goes to the school, it goes to, the road commissioner, and it goes to the fire chief. So, they have to let all of you know per our ordinance, and I just need somebody to,
Say
we're okay, and sign their name and date it, please.
Yeah, I have to run that.
You don't have to do it right this minute, but
No, give me the permission to write the letter saying you're okay with this, and I sent her a nice little letter.
they are on the planning board agenda for March 6th.
So, any other thing for the code enforcement and road commission report?
We have the RFQ is out on MMA. I put out an addendum today. A couple of engineers had questions. So we defined the scope of work, we defined how we wanted them to bid, lump sum for the design, the specifications, and the oversight for the bid process. And then when they do their inspection, when the engineer comes on site and does their inspections of the road work being completed, that will be more of a time and mileage quote that they will give us. So we'll have a rate sheet from these firms when they bid, and that will be the rate they bill us at for those inspections. They also had some questions on, how fast we're gonna progress with this. By the time we get done with the engineering and the road work actually gets started and completed, I don't know if we get asphalt down in a timely fashion, and we don't want to asphalt in October. We have snow in October. So this might be a 2-year process, a 2 fiscal year process for us. So, we don't get new asphalt laid down, or at least a finished coat of new asphalt laid down. Maybe we can get that much done, just get the base coat on it. Maybe we don't get finished coat until 2025. So we'll look at all of that when the bids come in and what they think the firms that bid, the engineering firms that bid, what the timelines will be.
Deputy clerk report?
Don't forget your taxes are due by the end of March, because that's not too far, and please come vote on the 5th. If anybody's interested in running for selectmen, the papers will be available on the 3rd.
And school board, right?
And the school board position, there is nomination papers available also.
Town administrator report?
Last meeting, we approved for Calderwood to be the engineering inspector for the Simmons Bridge. And he said it's gonna be somewhere around $10,000 for him to be the inspector. And there's a meeting on the 20, I sent it, put it in the packet, but it's on the 28th, 10 o'clock, pre-construction at the town office. That's all I have today. Minutes.
Oh. 5:56, meeting adjourned. Make a motion.
Second, yeah,
Move second, we adjourn, all those in favor?
in favor.
In favor, sorry, there's no clock in here, maybe off a little bit.
We have a special time meeting, starts at 6. Selectmen's meeting is 2.